Hello, and thank you for attending today's webinar. Welcome to the Hot Topics training on leveraging advanced functionality in Excel with Sage Intacct. We will also review the R3 new release of Sage Intacct. My name is Sarah Novak. I'm a marketing manager here at LBMC Technology Solutions, and just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. All the phone lines have been muted, but if at any time you need anything, please submit it using the chat panel or the Q&A. We will be taking questions throughout today's webinar, so please feel free to submit them at any time, and we'll make sure to get to everyone's question throughout the webinar. This webinar is eligible for CPE. So please, in order to qualify for CPE, you must stay on the entire session and answer any polling questions when prompted. We will also be sending out a recording of this session as well as the PowerPoint presentation. So today we have Shay Simpson. She will be presenting and is with LBMC Technology Solutions. She serves as our Sage Intacct consultant. She has over 20 years of experience in accounting and is really glad to be here today. So thanks again for joining. And Shay, I will now turn it over to you.
Hi, thank you, Sarah. Well, good morning. So Sarah has also let me know that this is one of the largest attended hot topic sessions that we have had. So I always like to tease that us as accountants, when it comes to when we mention Excel, we kind of go together like peanut butter and jelly as accountants. So I'm sure that's probably what has driven today's attendance record. And so, but I am greatly humbled and really appreciate your attendance. So we will be going through our advanced functionality within Excel in Sage Intacct. As far as our agenda, again, welcome. We will go through our learning objectives. We're going to go through presentation and demo. Again, today's session is going to be recorded, so anything that I'm going over in a live demo environment, you're going to be able to go back and access that information, pause the video, and kind of walk through what I'm going to be showing you today. And then at the end, we'll have time for Q&A as well. All right, in regards to our learning objectives, we're going to develop basic tips and tricks for successful imports into Sage Intacct. We're going to successfully create standard import templates for month-end close, learn how to successfully create advanced import templates using Power Query in Microsoft Excel, and learn how to mass update data via a CSV Export import. Okay, and so now we have our first polling question. I know Sarah is going to bring that up so you guys can actually respond. But how would you rate your proficiency in Excel? Are you a beginner? Are you more advanced? Are you a pro? Or do you like to think of yourself as Bill Gates? So I would have to say, as far as my knowledge, I would probably fall between the advanced and pro. So a little bit about my background. When I was in a traditional accounting, I worked for a publicly traded company, and our controller decided to shorten the close to where we had to close the books in 10 days. And so it was a theater chain, and so we had to allocate our expenses down to 600 and some theater locations. So myself and my colleagues, we come to the conclusion that we had to get pretty proficient in Excel if we wanted to be able to meet those deadlines as far as closing the books in 10 days, because we had a lot of massive allocations, as you can expect. So with that being said, like I said, there were several of us that took several advanced Microsoft Excel courses and became pretty proficient in Excel. So it is definitely a passion of mine. Anytime that I'm able to learn something new as far as functionality in Excel, I usually get pretty geeked out about that. So, and hopefully you'll be the same today. All right, how are we coming on responses, Sarah?
It looks like most everyone has finished. We don't have any Bill Gates out there yet.
Not yet. All right.
Most people are pretty advanced in Excel, it looks like.
That is awesome. That is awesome. All right. All right. So let's just talk about the basics, okay? When we're talking about our templates in Sage Intacct, as you know, you can go into Sage Intacct and be able to access any of your templates for importing data. And I'm actually going to show you where that's going to fall. So let's go into Sage Intacct really quick here. And I apologize, I meant to have this already pulled up, but it'll take us just a second here. All right. So if you are unaware where where you can download your templates, you're going to be going to Company, Import Data, okay? And so any of your templates.
Shay, I apologize.
Yes, ma'am.
We just see the presentation still. We don't see Intacct.
Okay. Let me stop sharing and I will reshare. Is that better?
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay. So again, that is under Company, Setup, Import Data. Okay. And so all of your templates are listed out here. All right. All right. So when you go out there and download those fresh templates, if you have ran into this in the past, a lot of times Intacct will kind of change those templates behind the scenes and not necessarily notify us that they have made modifications to those said templates. So a good example of this is oftentimes fields may be required or they may not be required, okay? Intacct may make that change, and if that field has not been required in the past, and you're using an old template, you may not necessarily know that that field has been updated. So with that being said, I would probably good best practice would be just to go out there and take a glance at the templates. If you're using an existing one, go out there and take a glance at maybe the template updates, maybe once a quarter, I would say, just to make sure that you do have all of the headers and all of the required information. You can highlight required columns for easy recognition. If you've gone through any implementations with myself, you will know that when I provide you templates, I always try to highlight those columns that are in fact required, as well as any fields that we do as far as like best practices. So anything that you need to fill out, we usually will highlight those. Be cautious of your number formatting. Everything needs to be formatted as far as your data in terms of either number or general, so that there is no commas. Ensure that preceding zeros remain on your ID. So how many of you have any type of department, location, class ID that starts with preceding zeros? For example, 002, 003, okay? You know that you usually have to do data text to columns and format those as text fields so that those preceding zeros will actually go into the import. Now, I'm going to show you, there's actually a gentleman that I follow on both Instagram and YouTube, and he actually made reference to, if you go out to File, Options, Advanced, Automatic Data Conversion, there is going to be a box that is unchecked box for remove leading zeros. This is huge. I wish they would have had this years ago, because this would have made my life so much easier. This option is in the beta phase. I know that you do have to have Microsoft Excel 365 or higher but keep checking back frequently because eventually this is no longer going to be in beta phase. It's going to go into live production of Excel, okay? So based on your version of Excel, keep going out there, keep checking back, and so see if you can uncheck that box, remove for leading zeros if you do have that and need that functionality. Read your import error messages from the bottom up. And again, I'm going to show you what this looks like. So I'm going to actually pull up an example of an error message file, okay? In this example, we have 146 that were successful. We have 9,429 that did not import. This was for a vendor list. Now, if you start at the bottom and read up, generally your errors are going to fall into this section right here, okay? So in this case, our print as field was not populated. That is a required field, and so therefore, we had those that erred out. Now, good best practice is that when you do an import and this sends you an email notification, this error file is your best friend, okay? Because this is going to produce a CSV file that only includes your errors, okay? So especially if you're doing journal entries, if you were trying to use your existing file that you originally tried to import, you could run into the risk of duplicating information because it's not going to tell you, hey, you've already tried to import this journal entry once and now you're trying to do it again, okay? It's not going to give you any type of error such as that. So again, your best friend is to use this error file that is included on the email because it's only going to include the errors in which you have, okay? All right, again, same thing, use the error download file for quick fixes. It's going to be your best friend. All right, tips and tricks. Columns can be in any order. Now, the exception to this rule is going to be for budgets and bank reconciliation transactions, okay? Now, I'm kind of anal retentive. I like to have my header information. So if you're doing any type of transaction and you know that there's certain columns that's your header information, for example, like posting date, description, journal entry type, those type things I do like to have at the beginning of my template just because, again, I'm anal retentive, but you don't have to have them in any particular order. Take advantage of the do not import column for subtotals, totals, calculations, and notes, okay? That's going to be that hashtag or pound symbol. Formatting or filtered fields disappear when saving a spreadsheet as a CSV. So we talked about that before. Those preceding zeros are going to disappear. Any type of formatting that you've done inside the file, that's going to disappear as well. Ensure your IDs match identical. We see this all the time. So for example, if you're loading an entity and the entity ID is E-100, you cannot load that as E space dash space 100. It will error out. Make another row for relevant information for import. Again, remember to include that hashtag or that pound symbol for those do not import columns. This can be turned on or off with a simple if-then function, okay? And this is the gentleman that I follow on YouTube and Instagram. His name is Mike, and I'm going to probably butcher his last name, but I think it's Stolzen. But he is amazing. He has not only Excel tips and tricks, he also has Microsoft Word, Microsoft Outlook, PowerPoint, anything Microsoft related, he has tips and tricks on, and they are great. He must work directly with Microsoft because there's a lot of things that is still in the beta phase that's going to be coming out with future releases of Excel and Word and those applications. But again, he is great, and so I follow him consistently. All right, so now we're going to go into a demo for our standard import templates. Okay. And let me open this up here. All right. And this is not the one I want to pull up. Let me pull up this other one here. All right. So this is a standard import template that I have created for a payroll journal entry, okay? So if you don't have an integration with your payroll system, for example, ADP, you may have to do this as a standardized export-import on a monthly basis, okay? So again, leverage any of your do not import rows, okay? In this example, this particular client, they changed a lot of their names, because you know you can change the terminology for your dimensions. Their location dimension is actually named company, their department dimension is named clinic, and their class dimension is named department. So I wanted to reference that because that can get super confusing, okay? I've also created sums for my columns to make sure that my entry does in fact balance, and then produced just a simple subtraction to again make sure that it balances. I've also highlighted any fields that I do in fact need to populate, okay? So I know that I need to populate my posting date as well as my entry description, okay? And so now what I have done is I'm now starting to produce my journal entry. And in this given instance, okay, I know intuitively that because this is a multi-entity shared environment, that the location ID is always going to be required, okay? So I've just simply highlighted all of that field to say, you know what, I need to populate that in terms of for my location. Now, what this client has also done is on certain GL accounts, they have marked that the department field is required. So you know on any of your GL accounts, you can actually go in and you can check the boxes for the particular dimensions that you want required on transactions, okay? So I want to make reference to which ones actually need to be populated. So I have done a managed view in Sage Intacct with my GL accounts, my title, and then my clinics, my companies, and my departments. And I have populated those to say true if it's required, false if it's not, okay? So now to ensure that this is going to work as expected, first and foremost, I'm going to do just a simple VLOOKUP. So we all know how to use VLOOKUps. We love them. They're our best friends. Now, I don't know if you know this, but anytime you want to lock a column, lock a row, or lock both, you can hit F4, okay? If I hit F4, it's going to produce $2 signs in front of my S and my 5. That's going to lock both my column and my row. If I hit it again, it's just going to lock my row. And if I hit F4 one more time, it's going to lock my column. I want my column locked. I'm then going to look at my GL account. I'm going to highlight those columns. Notice up here in the top, as I'm going across, I'm at column 3, 4, 5. It's a good, easy reference to know which column that I need to reference. In this case, I need to reference column 4. I'm going to put in our false, and then that's going to populate for us. And copy this down, okay? So I just double clicked that, copy that down. So this is going to ensure which ones need to be populated. But you know what? I don't want to do that as a VLOOKUP. I actually want to do some conditional formatting instead. I'm going to copy my VLOOKUP. I'm going to escape out of that. I'm going to highlight my cells that I want to put my conditional formatting in. I'm going to say conditional formatting. I'm going to create a new rule. I'm going to use a formula to determine which cells to format. I'm going to paste in that VLOOKUP, and I'm going to say equals true. For my formatting, what I have done is I have then selected that I want it to be filled with a particular color, and I've selected my color. I'll say okay. Okay. Now I can actually delete out my VLOOKUP. Okay. So I've done this all the way down. So obviously, departments are required on all of these. I've also done the same conditional formatting for column I as well. So here I can see that I don't have to populate a dimension for these particular GL accounts. So this is going to ensure going into it that my import file is correct. Okay, these are not, the department name is not required here as well. Now I am going to go ahead and just, put in some information here. So now I just know that intuitively I need to populate my dimensions anywhere that I have a highlighted cell. Okay. Now I can also create a payroll accrual using the same workbook. Okay, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see this. So what it is going to do, this particular payroll was posted on 1/28. So I know that I need to create 3 days worth of an accrual. Okay, so I'm going to, anywhere where I have these blue cells, I know that I need to import my information, or, place in my information, hard key my information rather. So I'm going to put in my date. I'm going to put in my reversal date for my accrual. This is going to be my January accrual for payroll. And then I am simply going to pull my total payroll from the first tab. I'm going to calculate however many days that I need to generate for this particular accrual. And then this is just going to pull in all of the information from the first tab, okay? And then I'm going to let it do the math for me. So I've just put in a if-then, okay? So basically, obviously, for my accrual, I'm not going to be accruing for my balance sheet accounts. I just want to accrue for my P&L accounts. So I'm saying that if my account number is greater than 49999, and then I'm going to allow it to do the math, okay? In other words, create my accrual. I'm going to make sure that it does, in fact, balance for my debits and credits. And if I save this as a CSV on either one of my tabs, my journal entry is created, okay? So I've got a standardized import template that I can use month over month, okay? So I'm going to pause there for just a moment. Sarah, do we have any questions that have come up in the Q&A or anything that's unclear?
Let's see, somebody did ask if they could have copies of these templates as a resource to build their own. So maybe if you can address that, Shay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can definitely share these because this is no problem whatsoever. These are super easy to build. And so I can share these with Sarah, that if she wants to include those when she distributes the PowerPoint presentation, she can also distribute this template as well.
Yep. Okay, will do.
All right. Perfect. Okay. All right. So now we are going to dive into Power Query. And this is where I'm totally going to nerd out on you guys. Okay. So how many have used Power Query within Microsoft Excel? No, you've never heard of it. I've heard of it, but not used it yet. Yes, I've used it a little. Yes, I use it frequently and love it. And I will go ahead and tell you that this is one of the things that actually I discovered from that gentleman that I follow on Instagram and YouTube, and he demoed this. And when he demoed this, I mean, it was one of those moments where I was like, oh my gosh, shut the front door, shut the back door, shut the side door. It was one of those aha moments that I was like, how did I not know about this? So when Microsoft introduced Power BI, okay, so that's their business intelligence, their analysis tool, okay? A lot of this functionality is used in Power BI, okay? They just kind of secretly like, oh, we're going to slide this functionality into Microsoft Excel. We're not going to make any big announcements or anything. We're just going to, here we go, secretly, we're just going to slide this right in here. So when we talk about Power Query, if you have ever had to build a macro in Excel, you know how big of a pain point that is. Macros, it's recording every step that or stroke that you are keying, okay? Every functionality that you're doing, it is recording that, okay? If you make a mistake, you know what happens. You have to start over. And that is one of my biggest frustrations with building macros. And that's why I'm not a big fan of macros. I can build them, but I'm not a big fan. So when I discovered this, again, it was one of those aha moments that I was like, I wish I would have known about this years ago in my career. So Sarah, where do we land on our polling? Are you there?
I'm sorry, I had a polling pop up. I couldn't unmute myself.
That's okay.
It looks like we're almost even across the board. We've got 18 saying or 34% saying no, we've never heard of it. I've heard of it but not used it, and yes, we've used it a little bit. So we're kind of even on those three.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to show you guys this. So in order to, oh goodness, hold on just a moment here. Let's go back into this. All right. So this is located on your data tab, and it can be accessed in regards to the drop-down for getting data. And we're going to walk through this demo together today. Power Query uses Power M programming language behind the scenes. Okay.
And Shay,
don't let that scare.
Shay, I apologize.
Okay.
We can't see your screen yet.
That's okay. That's okay. It looks like it stopped sharing again. So, guys, I always tease. I may work for a technology company, but I will not say that I'm the most technical person in the world. Okay. All right. So Power Query uses Power M programming language behind the scenes, okay? Don't let that scare you. Yes, you are writing programming language, but it's going to walk you through it, okay? I have given the reference here to go in and learn more about that Power M programming language. This resource is amazing, okay? There's so much functionality. Pretty much anything you can do in standard out-of-the-box Excel, you can write within this programming language to be able to do the same type of functionality within this, okay? It is so, it is slick. It is super slick. So I know even myself, I just want to dive in and learn more and more and more about this programming language. Also, when you're writing programming language, yes, you're writing in essence this programming. It is nothing more than a formula. We know it. It's intuitive. It's built into our brains. It's in our DNA. It's nothing more than writing a formula, okay? You can repeat the alterations to data when source data is changed or refresh. Easy to use UI, and yes, it is very user-friendly. But the source code can be refined for very specific functions. Combines data from multiple sources. Never use VLOOKUP again. I will have to say, I shed a tear there because VLOOKUPs are near and dear to my heart. But your end result is a table in Excel for easy import, okay? All right, it's time for the nerd alert here. We're going to dive into this demo. All right, so what we are going to do is I'm going to close out of our template here. And we can go ahead and save that. And let me open this up. All right. Okay, so now we are going into a blank workbook in Excel. So this can be accessed and launched under Data, Get Data, Launch Power Query Editor. If you right-click, notice mine is grayed out, but you can add it to your quick access toolbar. Mine has already been added, okay? So I could actually click on my quick access up here, or I can just go ahead and launch Power Query Editor. All right, so it is going to bring up the user interface, okay? Now, what we want to see is, first and foremost, let's open up, we're going to start a new source. okay? Now, this is going to be for credit card transactions, okay? So if by chance your banks, if you cannot connect to the credit card feed because your bank is not out there, you may be having to export, import for your monthly credit card transactions. And as you know, those files can oftentimes take a massive amount of manipulation. It's very time consuming. I hear this complaint a lot from clients, okay? So that's what we're going to be building out today. So we're actually going to go in and we are going to, this is going to be our credit card data for the month, okay? So all we have done is we've gone out to our credit card and we have downloaded our transactions, and this is going to be for the month of November, okay? And so I am going to pull this in. All this is my raw data, okay? So now we are going to start manipulating this file to get it into the import template so that we can upload it into cash management. So I'm going to rename this as data source. Notice when I do that, it has recorded my step over here on the right-hand side. Now, the first time that I went into this, I couldn't see my query settings. If you go to view and click on query settings, that window will pop up over here to the right. So that's just an FYI, okay? So now I'm going to start manipulating my columns to get it into the format in which I need, okay? So I'm going to take my standardized credit card transaction template, and I've actually got that just open on another screen. Now, right now, I cannot drag and drop that other Excel workbook over and show that. When you are in Power Query Editor, you can't do any type of other functionality within Excel. So if you do have two monitors, it's a good idea if you have something that you need to kind of reference, go ahead and open that up and put it on the other monitor. So first and foremost, we're going to add a column, and this is going to be a custom column, okay? And our custom column is going to be named, this is going to be for our Amex, and we're going to rename this as our header of card. And we're going to say, okay. Next, we need our date, okay? And we actually want our transaction date. Now, notice that we have our date, but then we also have this time stamp to the right, so we don't need that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to highlight my column and I'm going to extract, and I'm going to take the first characters. So I want the first 10 characters. I say okay. It produces another column. Now notice that this ABC, this references the type of column or information or data formatting that is here. I want to do that drop down, and I want to format this as date. It automatically changes it to the date format for me. And now I'm going to rename my column, and this is going to be my posting date. Okay. All right. So next I need my payee name. Okay. That is going to be nothing more than my vendor. I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call this payee underscore name. Next is going to be my description. I already have a description column, but obviously I need it in all caps because that's what it has to be as far as for an import template. I'm going to rename it. And in this given instance, this is a multi-currency environment that I'm working in. So I need another custom column. Okay, so I'm going to add another custom column. This one is actually going to be called currency. And this is going to be USD. So if I start and add quotes, notice it added my quotes at the end as well as for USD. And I'm going to say, okay. I then need my line numbering. So I'm going to do another custom column. This is going to be for my line number. And I want a single transaction. credit card transaction for each of my lines within this file. Okay, now oftentimes we might need to actually redo that, and I'm going to show you how to kind of redo that line numbering here in just a little bit. Okay, now we need our GL account number. Okay, obviously that is nowhere in our file because this is just raw data coming from the credit card source. Okay, so what I have done is I've actually downloaded from Sage Intacct my employees, okay, as well as my merchant category codes. So I have created a file that is saying for all of my standardized merchant category codes, and if you've ever looked at, your credit card transactions, it's going to have a merchant code on it. So I've associated all of my merchant codes with expense GL accounts and just kind of created like a source for myself. So I'm going to add another source. And this one, I think I did it as CSV. We'll quickly know. Nope, I did it as, all right. So I'm going to pull in on merchant category codes. Okay. Now, all that is going to do is, again, I have built a source for myself that I am maintaining that has all of my merchant category codes as well as my GL expense accounts that's associated with that, okay? Just a standard template. All right, I'm gonna say okay. So that adds another query out here for me. I'm gonna go back to my main data source, okay? And now I'm gonna merge my queries. And this is where it gets really cool. So I'm going to highlight my merchant category code, and I'm going to match it up against my file, and I'm going to match it up against my merchant category code in my file. Now, here is what I absolutely love. Unlike a VLOOKUP, it tells me that 128 of 128 rows are successful. How cool is that? VLOOKUPs don't do that. You have to wait till it says, what is it? Hashtag pound, that crazy error message that you get when a VLOOKUP is unsuccessful. So I already know that all of my entries matched, okay? And I'm going to say, okay. Now, notice it produced another column, but it just says table. That's all it says. Well, instead, what I want it to reference, I'm going to click on this, and I don't want it to say table. I want it to pull in my GL account. I'm going to say, okay. How cool is that? It automatically formatted it for me. I'm going to rename it, and this is going to be my account number. All right. So now I need my amount. Okay. Obviously, that's in my file. I already have a column that has amount, but it does need to be in all caps. All right, so now I need my location, my department, and lastly, my employee ID. Again, that's not in my raw data file. But what I do have is I have a last name, okay? Now, I can bring in another data source. This is going to be another source that I have created. And one quick sidebar, on these sources, you can connect to, look at all of these. I can reference a CSV file, an Excel file, a PDF. I can even reference online information, okay? There's so much you can do with this, all right? This is just the tip of the iceberg. So I'm gonna pull in this other data source, and this is going to be my employee. Again, all I've done in Sage Intacct is created a managed view, okay? I have exported out of Sage Intacct my employee ID, my primary contact, first name, last name, print as, location, and department. And I'm gonna say, okay. Once again, I'm gonna go back to my data source, and I'm gonna merge these queries. So I'm going to say I want the card holder's last name, and I want to reference my employee file to last name. Once again, 128 of 128 successful matches. And I'm going to say, okay. Now, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to rename this. And I'm going to rename this to location ID. And actually, I'm going to do this incorrectly. All right, so I'm like, oh, shoot, I didn't mean to do that. On my applied steps, all I have to do is X out of it. How awesome is that? We don't have to go through that macro of starting over. Now I'm going to do it the right way. I want to duplicate my column twice. I'm going to duplicate it twice. In my first column, I want it to be my location ID. I'm going to go ahead and rename it. And this is going to be location underscore ID. And my second one, I want it to be the department. I'm going to say okay. Rename. Department ID. And lastly, I want this column to be my employee ID. And this one's rather lengthy. It is actually CC transaction entry underscore employee ID. And I'll say okay. My template is built, okay? So now I can get rid of all of my information that I don't need. I don't need agency number, and I don't need down to card holder first initial. I've already done, in essence, my VLOOKUP. I don't need this column anymore. And now I can just remove my column, okay? All right, now I told you guys before, it does not have to be in a certain order. I'm a little bit anal retentive. Let's restate that. I'm a lot anal retentive. So I want to put this in a certain order. I like to see it in an order, and I can do it so fast that I can just drag and drop. That's all I have to do. So I want my card. I don't need my transaction date or my posted date. Okay. So then I want my date. I want my payee name. I don't need my merchant code anymore. I've got my description. Got my line number. Got my account number. My amount. Actually, currency needs to be over here before my line number. Well, it doesn't need to be, but I want it to be. Account number, and then amount, and then location, department, and my credit card transaction for my employee ID, okay? So this is my template. I'm ready to go, okay? So now I'm going to say close and load to. Now my first close and load to, I want to be just the connection, okay? And I'm going to say okay. All right. Now, what I can then do is I can go ahead and save this. This is, in essence, going to be my monthly credit card data query. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead. I can save that. I'm not going to do it because I've already done it. All right. Then over here under my data source, I'm going to right click. I'm going to say load to again, and this time I want to load it to a table, and I can put it into my existing worksheet, into cell A1, okay? Now, notice because I'm able to reference what cell I want it to go to. So remember that payroll standardized import that we just looked at? You could have it. It could load it. It could start loading into a certain line and column within that workbook. I mean, you can combine these. It doesn't have to go into A1. But look at this. When I say, okay, boom, my entry is done for the month. Done, done, done. Okay? Now, all I have to do is save this as a CSV, and I can import it into Sage Intacct. Okay? So now, I'm going to go ahead and just close out of this altogether. Actually, we'll just go ahead and save it. We'll say save as to my desktop. And this is going to be my November credit card entry. Okay. And I'll say that is a CSV, and I'm done. Okay. Once I save it to a CSV, it's perfectly fine. I can close out of this. It's not going to affect anything. Okay. And it's ready for my import. All right. So next month, I'm sitting out here and I'm like, okay, I am now ready to go to the next month. All right. So I'm going to say file, and I'm going to say open. And I'm going to open up in my browser, and I am going to open up that monthly credit card data query. Okay. When I open it up, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I don't see anything. I go to data. Get data. I'm going to go ahead and launch my Power Query editor. Okay. Still there. Everything is still there. I'm going to click on that monthly data source. And this time, I'm going to go to my data source settings. Now, notice on all of these data sources, these are referencing files in very specific locations. Okay? This is great because as I add new employees to my organization and or employees leave the organization, I can update this data source. As I have new merchant category codes, I can update this data source. All I do is I go out to this location, I update the data source, and I save it. My query is still working exactly the same, okay? But what I want to do is I want to change November to December. So now I'm out here, I'm sitting in December, and I say import. I say okay, I say close. I'm going to go to refresh all. Boom. It is done. All I have to do is then say close and load. And I go to existing connections. I've got my data source. I'm going to open it. I want to put this to a table in cell A1. My December entry is completed. That's it. That's all you have to do. This is why I nerd out over this. I mean, this is, we won't say life-changing, okay? We won't go to that extreme, but this is huge. So for those of you that have these massive files that you're having to manipulate month after month after month, I am hoping that this makes your life so much easier. Like I said, this is like the best thing I think I've ever discovered in Excel. All right, so that's my nerd alert.
Shay, can I interrupt you?
Yes, you may. Yes, you may.
This is really exciting stuff. But we have a question, and I thought, well, since you are still in here, someone had asked what happens if two employees share the same last name?
that can eventually pose a problem. Okay, so you may have to do some manipulation there. Okay, so what you could do instead, now if in our raw data file we had last name and we had first initial, okay, what we would maybe have to do is do a custom column that we concatenated the two. Okay, so instead of just searching on Smith, instead of for John and Bob, maybe we have Smith J and Smith B. In our data source for our employees, we would do the exact same thing. We would also concatenate last name and first initial. So we would again have Smith J, Smith B, and then you would in essence do your merging your queries, and you would do it on that concatenated column and the concatenated column in your data source. A great question.
Thank you, Shay. We're also getting a lot of comments that everybody's excited to try this. So I know you can't see it, but there's a lot of excitement.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So, all right, let's dive back into our presentation. I'm so happy. Like I said, I mean, I've heard this expressed for so long from clients, and so I'm happy to share this information. Again, things to consider, it's less steps, quicker template refresh, okay? Now, like I said, what that is meaning is, you know, like I said, just like a macro, it's recording your steps, okay? Be cognitive of your steps, you know, try to keep your steps as limited as you possibly can. I mean, obviously, your steps are your steps. You're going to have to manipulate that data in some way, shape, or fashion. If you have less steps, when you go in, for example, when you saw that I changed my data source from November to December, you noticed when it populated that to the table, it was very fast because I didn't have a plethora of steps. Okay, this one was very basic. So just kind of be cognitive of your steps. Again, your data source can be renamed and regrouped. Okay, so again, you can do that. You can duplicate, alter, or amend your queries for journal entries. Consider save over the top of the data sources and then refresh. So again, so if I would have, so for example, when I did that merging my queries, if I didn't have a successful 127 out of 127, say I had 124 out of 127, because maybe there's some new employees that have credit card transactions and I've not updated my source. You can go in and update your source, okay? You can just go in, update that employee file, save it, refresh, and then your query is going to work successfully when you merge that. So super, super powerful. Again, I've laid out the steps because this one was a little bit, I would say a little bit challenging for me. Like when I go back into my query, I want to know month over month, what do I need to do? So again, these are the steps. You open up your saved query, data, get data, data source settings, refresh all, close and load. You click on your existing connections, and then that way you can populate that to the table, okay? All right, so now we're gonna dive into mass update data. And we have another polling question here. How many of you use managed views to assist with mass updating data in Sage Intacct? Yes, I use managed views all the time to assist in updating my master data. I use managed views, but I didn't realize I could assist with updating my master data. Or what are managed views? It was funny because I did this presentation yesterday in our Brentwood office, and so many folks were like, when I asked the classroom, I said, who knows what a managed view is? There were so many individuals within the room that didn't even know what a managed view was. And I mean, it's normal. I mean, I try to go through it during my implementation to show my clients what managed views are. But I mean, we're human. We forget that functionality is out there. So I will definitely, I'm going to show you what the managed views are and how you can access those in Sage Intacct so that you'll at least know where those are at. So Sarah, where do we stand this far?
Most are wondering what are managed views.
See? The theme is consistent then.
Yep.
Well, good. All right. Well, that's good. We'll definitely go through and I'll show you these managed views. All right. Are we still looking like that? Most people are like, I have no earthly idea what a managed view is.
I think a lot of people will be learning about managed views today, it sounds like.
Okay. All right. Oh, where every time I hit enter, then it just, again, I work for a technology company, guys. Tech savvy sometimes. I am not. Okay. So when we are creating a managed view, okay, or managed view rather, I'm going to show you today in terms of what our managed view is for vendors, okay? So we can filter on data that needs to be updated, okay? So today we're going to look at a managed view for our vendors, okay? When you export this for a CSV import, our headers are already populated for us. We can filter and we can modify only the necessary information within Excel. It's already formatted as a CSV file. We save it, we can import that back into Sage Intacct, okay? So let's go ahead and dive right in. So we're gonna go into Sage Intacct, and I'm glad we're still on our company setup checklist. Now there is only certain information within Sage Intacct that you can do mass update on. If it can be mass updated, you're gonna see a little asterisk beside of the name. So your vendors, your customers, items, budgets, any information such as that can be mass updated. Unfortunately, chart of accounts and your dimensions cannot be mass updated. You have to individually go in there and update those one at a time, okay? All right, so when we go into accounts payable and we go into our vendor list, and you can do this in any list view in Sage Intacct. Notice here that you have managed views, okay? You can create, you can save, you can edit. So in this given instance, we're gonna edit our vendor 1099 information, okay? This is a wizard. It's gonna walk you through it. You can select any of the information that you wanna see, okay? If you need to see certain pertinent information, or in our given example, we are only pulling in the data that we want to update. So we want to update our 1099 type, our box, and our 1099 name, and quite possibly our tax ID, okay? We say next. We can actually select the column sequence, okay? So if I need to rearrange this, literally all I do is drag and drop, okay? I can also filter, and sometimes this can be extremely useful. So for example, maybe I only want to see tax IDs that is at, maybe I want to filter out everything and say that is null, okay? So I can actually say equals, and I can actually put in the word null here, and it's basically going to pull out anything that does not have a tax ID, okay? A lot of times I don't personally filter on anything because I just want to pull everything in and then filter in Excel because it's easier for me and I'd rather see everything. I can always sort my results, okay? So in this instance, you know, by default, everything is sorted by your vendor ID. Well, in this case, I want it to sort by vendor name, okay? I want it to put in alphabetical order for me. And then lastly, I'm going to save it. I'm going to give it a name. If I deploy it, all of my end users or anyone that has access to the vendor list can see this managed view. If not, it's only associated with my permissions only, okay? And then I'm going to save it. Now, what that does now is I literally have just my vendor ID, vendor name, tax ID, 1099 name, 1099 top, 1099 box. And I'm going to export this as a CSV for import. I'm going to open up an Excel file for me. Okay. And now I literally have my header information that I need. Okay. If there's any of these vendors that I know intuitively is not 1099 applicable, all I have to do is delete them. I don't want to mess with them. I don't need to do anything with them. I just want to just get rid of them altogether. Okay. So I'll just go ahead and delete those. Okay. Now, another type of functionality that we're going to look at is, notice here that we have all these blanks. Okay. And I need all of these to be miscellaneous box 3, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to highlight the cells that I want to, and this is going to be my terminology, fill in the blank, okay? I can either hit F5 or Control G. That is going to bring up my go-to window. I'm going to say special. And I'm going to select blanks, and I'm going to say OK. It's already highlighted cell I2. I'm going to go up into my formula bar, and I'm going to say I want it to equal I4. I'm going to hit Control, Enter. And you know, in a demo environment, it never works as expected. Theoretically, it should have populated everything miscellaneous box 3. But again, it's a demo environment. But if you have information, any type of information that you're exporting out of Sage Intacct, a lot of times, and I know this is in different screens, that sometimes you may have like in a particular export, you may have like your customer ID and your customer name, and then you'll have all your data. You may have data going down, but your customer name and your customer ID did not populate all the way down. You have a lot of blank spaces before you get to your next customer ID and customer name. You can do the same type of functionality, okay? Now, once I've saved this, once I've updated everything and made all of my modifications, I'm going to save this as my vendor update, okay? So I've got my vendor 1099 update. I'm going to save this as a CSV file. I'm going to hit save. It's going to ask me if I want to replace it. I'm going to say yes, okay? So my file has been created. I'm going to go back into Sage Intacct. I'm going to say import. I'm going to select that file, that CSV file that I have out here for my vendor 1099 update. I'm going to process offline, okay? Once you check this box one time, you don't have to check it again. When I process offline, that's what's going to send me that nice email with my error file attached. And I'm going to say import. So very quickly, I can update all of my information in a mass update. So you can use this to update customer addresses, customer emails. You can use this to update your vendor information. You can use it to update, vendor addresses. You may have to do mass cleanup for your vendors or your customers. Any of that, all you have to do is create those manage views and do that export for CSV. Okay. Now I have gone through and walked through as far as laying out the steps on how to do this, okay? So each of these steps are laid out for you in the PowerPoint, because this one, there wasn't as many steps. I can lay out all the steps for the data query. There's just too many. But there are all the steps here, so you can kind of follow this through to fill in your blanks. And you can do this if we're filling in blanks above or below, okay? And then you can import it back into Sage Intacct. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully you have learned a good bit as far as with Excel functionality, and hopefully this will be making your lives much easier. So now we're going to switch gears, and I'm going to see if there are any questions, Sarah, while I am pulling up my secondary PowerPoint presentation.
I don't see any more questions, but just a reminder, yes, we will send out all of these slides and the recording afterwards. I know there were a few people that had asked, so I just wanted to make sure that we covered that again.
Perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the second presentation. All right. We will go through our second presentation. Sorry, I may not be as excited about this one as I was about Excel. There's a lot of good functionality in here, but you know, like I said, I'm passionate when it comes to Excel. All right, so these are going to be our release 3 highlights. Okay, the release calendar, as you all know, this R3 release came out on August the 19th. So you will see all of this functionality within your Sage Intacct environment already. The next release, and this is going to be pretty crucial, November 11th, okay? And there's a lot of really good functionality coming out on that R4 release. I have got some demo videos that unfortunately we couldn't get the audio working as expected today, but again, Sarah is going to be sharing the slide deck, and so you will actually be able to go in and watch the those videos as far as what's coming out for R4. All right, so this is a list of all of the changes for R3. So there was a hefty amount this time. Now, I've tried to go through and at least put in some icons on the slide deck. So if you see like the 2 gears, that's going to say that configuration is needed. If you see the lock, you may have to update your end user permissions. And if you see the little umbrella and the lounge chair, no action is necessary. You sit back and enjoy it, okay? So we have got our first polling question here. How many of you have a sandbox environment? And this is a simple yes or no. And so obviously, if you do not have a sandbox environment, you're saying, okay, what is this, Shay? So a sandbox environment it's a secondary instance of Intacct. It is a snapshot in time of your production environment, and it allows you to be able to go out there and basically play, i.e. sandbox. So you can actually go out there, you can test functionality. A lot of times folks will use their sandbox environment if they've got a possible integration that they are wanting to look into or they're trying to implement. This is once they've already gone live, okay? So they'll have that secondary sandbox environment that they can actually go out there and play in. So you do have to pay for a subscription for a sandbox environment, okay? But if it is something that you might be interested in, you can always reach out to us here at LBMC or Deanna with LBMC, and we can actually look into that sandbox environment for you guys. But yeah, it's pretty useful. We have, I would say probably around 30% of our clients have sandbox environments that they utilize. We do have a sandbox environment internally because we do use Sage Intacct internally. And so we do have a sandbox environment that we'll go out there and test and different types of functionality that, you know, maybe we're wanting to look at. Then we'll go out there in the sandbox environment, and it doesn't hurt your production environment at all. Very similar to your implementation environment that you guys had whenever you went through the implementation process. All right, so how are we looking?
It looks like we've got a majority that do not have sandbox, but there are a good amount that do. Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, as you know, every time I hit enter, Sorry, guys, I apologize. So, as you know, in the past, for your sandbox environment to be refreshed, you've had to reach out usually to us, and we have had to submit a support ticket on your behalf to basically go out to Intacct and say, can you refresh this client sandbox environment? Now, sandbox environments can be refreshed 4 times in a given year, okay? And that there is no charge for that refresh when it's 4 times a year. So now they have made it to where you can actually go out there and make the change. If you go to Company, Admin, and see if you have sandbox options, okay? If you don't, check back because they're kind of rolling this out, okay? So you may not have it today, but it's coming, okay? So you won't have to submit a support request. All right, so if any of the clients that are on the phone today, if you are a nonprofit, you know that oftentimes best practice is we will actually set up your funds as your entities. And we do that so that we can have fund balancing, okay? And that is a huge request from clients, especially for our only for our nonprofit clients. But so now whenever you go in and under the entity information, you can actually define it. So now you first have to set it up in company, and the accounting practice for funds have to be toggled to traditional fund accounting, okay? And then under your entities, you can actually change the type from entity to fund, okay? So if you do have traditional fund accounting in your not-for-profit environment, you can actually go ahead and go in and make this change. So this is pretty big. All right, in regards to accounts payable, if you know in the past, it's always been just business users that were able to approve AP payments. And that has been a big request from our clients, okay? Now, if you're a business, employee, warehouse, project manager, or platform user, you can actually approve or decline AP payments, okay? All right. So now in AP advances, we have further details, and I really like this functionality. Because always before in our advances, we really couldn't see the posting details, as well as once those advances had been applied to AP bills, we couldn't see where they had been applied, okay? So let's look at this in Sage Intacct. So if we go back into Sage Intacct, we go to accounts payable, and we go to our advances, okay? And I'm actually going to go down to the entity level. All right, so we've got the advances out here. And so now if I click view, I can actually see my posting details. I can see what GL accounts this is posted to. And I can also see, once this has been applied, I can see where it has been applied, okay? So this is really good functionality as far as being able to see this. All right. I'm going to close out this other PowerPoint presentation to make things easier on myself. All right. So now you can also view bill attachments in split view. And I absolutely love this functionality because this has been a request for quite some time, okay? Now you do have to update your preferences to enable the split view and show split view on page load for you to be able to see this. And again, let's go back into Sage Intacct, okay? If we go back into Sage Intacct, first of all, we have to go under our preferences, okay? We're going to scroll down until we get to our display, okay? And this is just going to be a sidebar or a freebie because in my discussions yesterday, some folks were not aware of this. Under your preferences, so this is only specific to you as an end user, you can actually update the order of the menu, okay? You can actually drag and drop this to where it's very specific to your role within the organization and what you need to work with most frequently. What this is this is going to rearrange your menu here on the left-hand side, okay? Another aspect for display, if you do not have your list screen records per page set to 999, 40, and 5,000, do it now. It will make your life so much easier. Because if you know, like, especially if you're going in and you're looking at your, like, chart of accounts is a great example. You go in and look at your GL accounts, and you have a good number of GL accounts. You may have to then tab from page to page to page to see all of your GL accounts. If you go ahead and set these, and these are the maximum, by the way, okay? So 999, 40, and 5,000 are the maximum. Once you set that, all your GL accounts are on one page. So it's awesome. So that's just a sidebar. That's a freebie. All right, so down under personalized split view, enable split view, show split view on page load, okay? And I'm going to save my preferences. So now when I go out to accounts payable and I go to my bills, okay, I've actually created a view for bills with attachments to make it easier on myself. So now I have a column, and in my demo environment, I have one little bill here that has view attachment. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to open this up. When I open this up, because I have set my preferences, now I have this nice split view. So here's all of my information that I have keyed in, and here is my Amazon bill. I love it because that's been a big request from clients for quite some time. Because normally before you'd had to hover it over, you'd had to click on your attachment to actually be able to see the bill. So this is huge. All right. Let's see. Oh, looky there. We actually made it work this time. Okay. All right. Now, this is one thing I wish I could show you guys this, but like I said, we couldn't get our audio. We were having technical difficulties this morning. So, but there you will, again, you're going to get this slide deck. All you have to do is hover over this overview and demo for this AP bill automation. It's only 11 minutes. Roughly long. It is awesome. So if any of you guys are using the functionality like of your bill.com is a good example, or if you've ever looked into bill.com, it's a lot of the exact same functionality, okay? You're going to be able to upload bills, okay? So you can actually upload bills and it's automatically going to populate within the fields by using artificial intelligence. You can also have a designated Sage email address that your vendors can send bills to, okay? This is in the early adopter phase. So please note, this is not in the R3. It's supposed to be coming out in the R4 release, and that's why I said be very cognitive of that November date, because this is in the pipeline and it is coming out. Yeah, I don't think any of you guys are in that early adopter. Early adopter means that you're part of the program, that you're actually already using this functionality. I don't think any of our clients from LBMC are actually using this, but it's slick. I really, really like it. It can also notate if there are duplicates. So if you have uploaded a bill and then the vendor sends in the bill to this email portal, it will actually notify and it will actually put in a notification to say, hey, this is a duplicate. It will also, if there's any errors So if that because it's artificial intelligence, there's going to be errors. If there's any errors that kind of pop up, it will also notate that as well. But like I said, it's pretty slick. I'm not certain. I'm assuming that there's probably going to be a cost associated with it. It will probably not be, like out of the box intuitive with just standardized Intacct. So I'm sure there will probably be a cost associated with. I've not heard what that's going to be, but I'm sure it will probably be competitive with your Bill.com type functionality. Okay. All right, we've got UI improvements in receive payments. Okay. So if you have worked with me through any of the implementations, you know that when we go through and we configure our AR, we have this discussion and we say, do you want to apply discounts automatically? Do you want to apply your credits automatically? Well, obviously, a lot of times when you're going through implementation and I ask you these questions, you're like, hey, I don't even know what you're asking me. Sure, that's great. So we'll go ahead and check those boxes. And so then down the road, you start going in and receiving payments from your customers, and you're like, why is this automatically applying these credits? Well, because that's what we configured. So now it is going to tell you, auto apply on for discounts, credits, payments. Okay, so it is at least going to tell you what is in your AR configuration. And you can always go in, you can uncheck these boxes, okay? All right, so we also have enhancements to the receive payment. Now, as you know, when you go in to receive a payment for your customers, and you have to select the invoices, okay? It's always kind of been a pain if you only had one invoice for those customers. So now, when you populate for your customers, if there is one and one only invoice only, you don't have to do any other clicking. Customer only has one invoice, you don't need to select it. It is automatically going to populate, okay? Less clicks is always better, right? All right, this one was huge for us internally, okay? So new statement date field. Anytime you go in to print or email your statements, in the past, a lot of times, it was referencing that last statement date. So basically, it was picking up the last time that you printed and or emailed statements, okay? That was a huge pain point, especially for us, because we may, you don't work, some of your customers you may not work with consistently, okay? So it may have been a good bit of time since you had ran those statements, and when it printed out, it had a last statement date on there. Sometimes it may have been in 2021, which was very confusing to customers. So now you can actually go in and populate your statement date. I'm going to put in a statement date as of 9/14/2022, okay? Cash management. So who has been creating transactions for any type of bank fees? Okay, if you started doing that, I think that came out in R2. Now you can do it for your credit card transactions as well. So you can actually go to cash management, set up reconciliation transaction templates, and you can actually start to create these transaction templates for us, okay? You can set up creation rules. Same thing that we saw with the banking functionality. We are now seeing it with the credit card transactions. So you can create a creation rule for credit card transactions. Again, very similar to how you created one for journal entries. Keep in mind that if you're a multi-entity structure and multi-base currency, which some of you may or may not be, best to create these rules at the entity level, okay? And create these rules and create transactions for charges to the credit cards by filtering for debit type transactions, or create transactions for credit card payments or refunds, okay? Good functionality there. All right, general ledger, allocations for restricted users. Now, I'm not for sure how many of you are using, they change the name pretty frequently. I still refer to it as dynamic allocations. I think they're calling it advanced allocations maybe now in Sage Intacct. But they're dynamic allocations that we have created for you guys for the most part during your implementation. Before, if you had restrictions on your users for entities, they couldn't see those dynamic allocations. Now they can actually go in and see the allocations, but it is only the information that is applicable, to the entities that they have access to. So again, good functionality there. We can do per dimension allocation enhancement, okay? So before, for our employees, we couldn't do per dimension value, okay? We can now apply that per dimension value cycles for the employee, okay? Again, good functionality. You can edit any of your existing allocation definitions by going to General Ledger on the Setup tab, and those are under Allocation Definitions, and you can edit. For those dimensions desired to change, you can change that to per dimension value, okay? And that's going to affect both employee and project, all right? Contracts, okay? Again, there's another demo here. This one's even shorter. This one's only 2 minutes. I myself, personally, I don't work with contracts so much on our implementation team. As you guys mostly know, if you have implemented contracts, you have probably worked with Angela Payne or Melissa Powell. Those are our 2 resident experts when it comes to contracts, okay? But if you do have contracts in your environment, this one's pretty hefty, and this was a huge request from our client base. But now you can schedule automatic invoice runs, okay? Really, really good demo on that one there. So again, not very long, but you can go in and reference that for those of you that do use contracts. Inventory, again, this is another one of those modules you may or may not use much of. And now for our cycle count update, okay? So that again is going to be updating that information based on your inventory methodology of LIFO, FIFO, et cetera. That is, so for our cycle count update. So now we have renamed to show the quantity on hand field, to show the quantity on hand after the count has started. We've added that quantity on hand last updated field. We've added the update quantity on hand, added the quantity on hand as a last update column, and we've moved that expiration date to column. Okay. Again, for inventory, when you actually go into an inventory item query, this used to be called sales order and purchase order on these tabs, which was, to me, it wasn't very intuitive as to what it was. Basically, it's what's on hold and on order. Okay, so if we have placed our inventory on hold for a particular project, or if it is on order from a purchase order, then now it is actually going to reflect that. Okay, so if those transaction definitions is updating that information, we can see what is on hold as well as on order. All right, so another polling question here. Do you use custom printed document templates within order entry? And this is another very simple yes or no. So for our custom printed document templates, if you are using order entry and you've either had us create custom invoices for you, those have been created through custom printed document templates, okay? Some of you have gone so far as you have learned how to build these custom printed document templates yourself. So you can use custom printed documents as a whole. You can use them for, you can create customized AR statements, okay? You can do customized AR invoices. You can do customized order entry invoices. You can also do, for purchasing, you can do customized purchase orders So if you do have to send your purchase orders out to your vendors, you can use it for those as well. They're not difficult to build. I know. I think we've done a Hot Topics on printed document templates in the past. I work with them a lot. I'm probably one of the ones on the team that probably works with them probably the most. They're not difficult. If you've ever used mail merge documents within Microsoft Word, very, very similar to that. You're basically using merged fields that's pulling in from Sage Intacct. And there's an add-in from Sage Intacct that fits inside of Microsoft Word. So they're not hard. It's just a learning curve, really, with manipulating Word documents, which, you know, those can be challenging in and of itself. Sometimes that formatting can get a little wonky, but yeah. All right, so how many do we have custom printed document templates within order entry, Sarah?
Let's see, it looks like about 52% do not.
Good deal. Do not. Okay. All right. All right. So where? Oh, where? It's gonna be one of those days, isn't it? Okay. All right. So now we can actually put tracking information on these invoices. So this has been a request too from clients. But oftentimes we need to supply to our customers what that tracking information is, okay? So now we have a new table and it is tracking entries, okay? We can actually put, these are the mail merge fields that I was referencing before. So we can actually put any of these mail merged fields into a custom printed document template, okay? And this is what your mail merge fields is gonna look like. So there's also a new template. So as you know, in printed document templates, there are actually standard out-of-the-box templates out there. And there's actually one that even provides tracking, okay? So it actually gives you a tracking sample. And this reference that the Intacct Sales Invoice with tracking sample, okay? So if you want to actually go out there and take a look at it, you can actually go out there and take a look at the one that's out of the box, okay? All right, so again, our header and line information prints as always, and then we've got that tracking information at the bottom, and our line numbering for our tracking information aligns with our line numbering on the invoice. So super nice. Good. It's really a good benefit for those of you that do need to supply that information. All right, platform and customization services, okay? So I don't know how many of you have actually created smart events and or had us create smart events on your behalf, but you can also create triggers, okay? Triggers offer you the ability to update line items based on an index, which smart events can't do. Triggers also offer the flexibility of using JavaScript, okay? So this gives a really good example of some trigger types and kind of defines what those details of those triggers are, okay? Good functionality there. I've not worked with triggers a whole lot. I think some of my other colleagues have worked with them a little bit more than me. Smart events is kind of my go-to. I know I've probably put a lot of smart events in some of your all's environments. Smart events, obviously, if you don't know what those are, so obviously if I'm comparing them against triggers, you're like, well, Shay, I don't even know what smart events are. Smart events, basically, it helps protect the integrity of your data, for lack of a better term, okay? Smart events and smart rules are awesome. Smart rules, I guess, protect your integrity of your data probably a little bit more than smart events. Smart events can do automatic updates of fields for you. It's almost like an if-then. There's something in this particular field, I want it to populate another field for me. Compared to like smart rules, so a good smart rule would be when I create a new GL account, I want to make sure that I have selected a quick start category, okay, so that I can still use my out-of-the-box financial reports. And if I don't select a quick start category, it's going to produce an error. It's going to say, hey, you need to select a quick start category. And what's kind of comical is you can actually tailor that note that pops up. So if you want to play some tricks on some of your colleagues, you're like, hey, dummy, you need to select a quick start category. So yeah, so that's kind of the down and dirty with smart rules, smart events, and then your triggers. All right, in terms of reporting, okay, these are now standardized out-of-the-box dashboards, and they have now created them specifically for roles. So we have one for an AP manager, an AR manager, department manager, CFO, and controller. Now, these are going to be in your Quick Start library, but only if you are general or not-for-profit. If you are a service, if your environment has been configured as service, you will not be able to see these. Okay, so we're going to talk about that in Intacct. I can just do this here. Okay, all right, so we're going out to Intacct here. So first and foremost, to determine what your environment has been configured as, we're going to go out here and to your company. Oh, not at the top level. All right, so we're going to go to company, configuration. We're going to click on company. And under accounting, your quick start template. Okay, this is what it is going to tell us. Okay, so if you're not for profit or general, you're going to be able to see these dashboards. To get to them, you're going to go to dashboards, click on the word dashboards, appear under your dashboards library. Again, if you're general or not-for-profit, you're going to see these new dashboards available to you. Okay. I'm hoping that they maybe roll that out for service as well, because I do think they're pretty slick. So this is the one, actually, let me go back one slide. Okay. All right, so this is the one for controller. Okay, so it's very specific to for those that's needed from the controller role. We've got ones that are specific for department and revenue. Okay, so that would be that AR. Department and support, that may be that AP manager. Okay. One question that came up yesterday is, can these dashboards be edited? Okay, that's a good question. So what we can't edit the ones that are in the library, but I'll tell you what you can do. You can install it, okay, and we're going to call this one is cash analysis, okay. Oh, probably already out here anyway. If once it is out here and we go back to our dashboards, you're going to see it out here. You can always, we should be able to duplicate it. Should be able to duplicate it. And it may be because this one is not out of the box. You should be able to duplicate it though to be able to edit it. Okay. All right. Now we have tours from the comfort of your home. Okay. What you're going to see now is you're actually going to see out here now, we have on certain screens, you're going to be able to actually take a tour of that particular screen. Now, what I'm finding is if this is a screen that you've been working in for quite a while, I'm not seeing that pop up. But if it is something that is new, you should be able to see those tours available. Okay. This is another demo, and this one I highly, highly, highly recommend that you go back and watch. This one is very short. It is only 5 minutes. This is for list views. So very, very, very similar to what we are seeing in those managed views that we looked at before. The list views are even more dynamic, okay? You can actually, on your list views, you're able to sort your columns very easily. It's a lot of dragging and dropping, okay? And really, to me, if any of you have worked with ICRW or any of the reporting in ICRW, it looks very similar in nature, but much easier to use, okay? So all it is doing is enhancing that list view. It's allowing you to then apply filters, okay? So if we, for example, if we were looking at our vendor list, okay, or a vendor managed view, we could then be able to filter on vendors that were high priority, or we could filter on vendors that had a balance due between 1,000 and 5,000, okay? So a lot more really robust functionality. Again, go back, watch the video. This one, again, supposed to be coming out in R4, okay? So not that far ahead, that November deadline, okay? So we are going to be seeing this pretty soon. All right, last polling question, and this one's a good one. Who would like to receive a $25 Amazon gift card? Yes or no? And if anybody marks no, just feel free, pass it on to me. I mean, literally, I think Amazon shows up at my house every day. And that's not a positive thing either, sometimes. It is always comical, though, when you look outside and you're like, oh, here's the Amazon truck. Not quite sure what I ordered. Don't really remember what I ordered. I have actually done that before. I looked out and there was an Amazon truck, and thankfully it went to my neighbor's house. It was FedEx, actually. But now he went to my neighbor's house, and I was like, what did I order? I didn't remember ordering anything. Yeah, this one's a good one.
Looks like we've got people interested in Amazon gift cards.
Has anyone marked no? Would anybody like to share them with me if you don't want it? If anybody marks no, I'll just let Sarah tell me who you are, and I'll contact you and be like, hey, you can give your Amazon gift card to me.
Oh, they're retracting their answers. No. Yeah, looks like most everyone wants an Amazon gift card.
Okay. We thought we can go ahead and end this polling question early. This is kind of just a comical one. I had to throw in some comic relief here for you guys. All right. Okay. So you can actually share your experience. This $25 Amazon gift card is actually coming from Sage Intacct. Now, it's funny because before I actually saw this like on the home page, and when I went in to add it to my slide deck, I was like, I'm not seeing where it's at anymore. So I'm going to show you guys where it is at. Let's go back into Intacct here. Okay. So if you go up to your Help Center, okay, and I am going to search for tell us how we're doing. It pops up. Haha. Share your experience. It'll take just a hot minute there. There you go. All you have to do is click review now. We'll send reviewers of Sage Intacct a $25 Amazon gift card or equivalent. Say thanks for contributing a detailed, balanced, complete review. All right. So I highly encourage you to do that because it's a free $25 Amazon gift card. Hopefully I have not taken the review. I don't even know if I can as a bar partner, but they may be like, why are you reviewing it? Be like, because I want the $25 gift card, obviously. All right. So lastly, in summary, if you need to go back and review any of the R3 release notes, it is always going to be on your homepage of Sage Intacct. If not, it will be in the slide deck. So you can always access all of the release notes here. But thank you so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate you allowing me a part of your day to learn some more about Excel functionality, learn more about the R3 release. Sarah, do we have any questions now at the end? And we can, I mean, if you have an Excel question, please feel free to ask.
I don't see any more questions. You did such a great, thorough job. And I know we got a lot of, this is so exciting. This is awesome. A lot of great feedback already. So I know you guys can't wait to just get back and start trying all these new tips. And thank you, Shay, so much for presenting today.
Absolutely.
We will send out the recording, the slides, and the templates that Shay said she would share with all of you. So be looking out for that email within the next couple of days. And we will also include a survey. We'd love to hear feedback about what kinds of topics that you all would like to hear about as well, and how you think that we did today. So please, complete that survey. And thanks for attending today. We hope everyone has a great rest of the day.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.